So Bueno is now almost 3 years old, and in this video I'm going to show you his first few rides under saddle. So I started where we left off this time last year, asking him to walk up to the fence and stand there for me to put weight on him, and he's doing really well with that. And of course I checked all my groundwork before we did anything. So I'm just going to lay over him, put some weight on him, and then swing my leg up onto his rump, but not over the other side yet. So I'm doing this method. It's called the Jeffries method, and it's an Australian trainer who started to do this. And I'd like to do this with my sensitive horses because it separates the stress of the rider from the stress of the saddle. The other thing it does is keep me safer if he were to get really troubled and bolt or take off. I can just slip my leg over his back and land on my feet and stay out of the way, and there's no saddle or stirrups for me to get hung up in. So I'm very slowly just moving around on him, and I just slip my right leg over to the other side, but I'm not going to sit up on his back quite yet. I'm going to wait for him to stop moving around and then slowly sit up, and now he can see me out of both eyes. And I'm just going to rub on him. This is his first ride. This is his first time with me on his back moving around. And all I want to do during this session is get him used to the feeling of carrying me and balancing with me on his back and moving him around a little bit. So in order to get him to walk forward, all I do is I bump my legs and create some energy. I don't squeeze. I make sure that my legs are very relaxed, my body's relaxed. I just create some energy with my legs and ask him to walk forward. When he starts walking forward, I'll stop bumping with my legs. When I start a colt, I usually start them in a rope halter for the first ride or two, and I start with just using one rein. So I'll use one rein at a time. I will flip that rein over and use it on the other side, but I do not pull with two reins at the same time for the first little while, for the first maybe 5 or 10 rides. When you pull on two reins at once, it can stop forward movement, and what I want to establish in the first several rides is free forward movement, relaxed forward movement. I don't want to have any stickiness in the feet. Steering will come later. Right now I'm mostly concerned with relaxation and forward movement. That's why we do our first rides in a round pen, so that I don't have to steer him. I don't have to worry about him getting himself into a bad situation because there's only 50 feet in a circle where he can go. So I just want to create some forward walking movement, and I'm changing direction so he can see me out of both eyes as I'm doing this. And he is learning to steer a little bit, one direction and then the other direction, keeping everything really relaxed. I'm going to bend him to a stop here, make sure that he knows I'm up there, touch his butt, touch him all over. And that was his first ride with me on his back. In this next clip, I'm going to show you the easiest way to bridle a young horse or any horse. I first slip the bit underneath of his chin so that I have control of his head. Then I take my right hand and put it on the top of the bridle so that I have control of his entire head here. Then I'll slip the bit up and into his mouth, and then very carefully put his ears forward and underneath the bridle. And that was pretty good. He didn't fling his head up in the air. He kept it pretty level for me. And that's what I want to see when I'm bridling them. So then I like to do my groundwork with the bridle on. Now the bridle doesn't have reins attached to it. It is just over top of the rope halter, and the rope that I'm using is pulling on the halter, not on the bridle. I just have that in his mouth to get him used to the bit, and maybe on the 5th ride or so we'll put some reins on it. So my groundwork is good, and I just wanted to pause this here and mention that he did throw me a bit of a curveball. He started to be worried about the saddle out of his right eye again. So I ended up having to go back and work with just the saddle for a few weeks to get him good about that saddle out of his right eye. And once that was good, we were ready to get on. So I'm going to put my foot in one stirrup and throw my body weight over the center of the saddle and just rub him so he can see me out of that right eye. And I'm going to get down and do the same thing on the other side before I commit and swing a leg over. So again, pulling myself up, but putting my weight in the center of the saddle so I don't throw him off balance, letting him see me out of that left eye this time, making sure that's okay. I asked him to move off there so he could feel me moving with him in the saddle. That all seemed pretty good. So we're going to throw a leg over and get ready for a first ride with the saddle. Checking that the stirrups don't bother him when they flap around, and I'm gonna swing his weight just a little bit so that when I do pull my weight up onto him, I don't throw him off balance and startle him. The first thing I do when I get on any horse is just stand still and do nothing. I want to get them in the habit of staying still when I get on. And again, I'm going to use that bumping movement with my legs to create some energy. Bumping, 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 and then stopping once he goes forward. And so again, the bridle is on, but the rope that I have is attached to the halter, and one rein at a time for now. This is his second ride, but his first ride with me in the saddle. And the saddle was causing him some worry for quite a while, so I wanted to make sure that that was all good and out of his system before I got on with the saddle. And I'm trying to keep everything nice and relaxed. I do want him moving a little more forward than that. He needs to feel confident and comfortable moving forward, because when you have a horse that gets sticky, especially a colt, that's when you run into problems. When a horse doesn't want to freely move forward, that's when you get into bucking issues and rearing issues. So I want to establish that early, that it's a good thing if he can move out forward with me. And he's a sensitive horse, so I didn't expect to have any problems with that, but you never know when you get on a colt really what they're going to do. So as long as he's moving forward, I'm going to leave him alone. And he's starting to get more comfortable moving out in a bigger circle. Usually in the first ride or two, they just want to spin around in a small circle. But as he gets more comfortable moving out and forward, he's moving in a bigger circle. Now this was his first trot under saddle. And you can see here he gets a little bit worried in a moment. And I just go with him. If I were to pull back on the halter and try to stop him there, he might get more worried because he'd feel trapped. And that's not what I want to establish. I want him to feel comfortable moving out forward. So I just go with him if he decides that he needs to move his feet a little bit faster than what I was expecting. That's fine. This is the same ride. This is his third ride, and this is his first time trotting under saddle. And he's doing really well with it. He didn't really give me, other than that little scoot out, he didn't really give me any problems with this. And again, using that bumping movement with my legs to create energy. Sometimes I'll reach back with a rope or my hand and create some energy behind him. I want to drive him forward from behind. And then I'll ask him to stop, bring his head around, disengage his hind end. And in this next clip is his first time loping under saddle. And again, once I got him going really nice and forward at a trot, just creating a little bit of extra energy and rolling him up into a lope. And he had no problems with this. He was great. He did pick up the wrong lead on one side, but I'm not worried about leads at this point. I'm just worried about forward movement. So this was his fourth ride total. So now that he's moving out nice and forward, it's going to be time to put some reins on that bridle and start working on body control over the next few rides.